So we kind of walked through a few of the questions last week. I'm going to do a few more. If there's one that you want to see worked out, just let me know and I'll go back to it. We've got plenty of time to review, so if there's one on this page that you want to see, just raise your hand and I'll do whatever questions you guys want to do. But there's certain ones that I picked out that I want to do because you'll see similar ones to it on the final. Let's look at number 2. So how would we factor number 2? Take out a GCF. Looking at our answer choices, all of them have a GCF of m squared. So we know that that's going to be our GCF that we take out. So we're going to take out an m squared. We're left with 3m squared plus 35m plus 72. Now what would we do? Can't divide by 3 because we can't divide 35 by 3. What do we do when our leading coefficient's not 1? Multiply the first times last. So 3 times 72, you guys will have your calculator for the final, so you could put it in the calculator. 3 times 72 is 216. And then we want to see what are 2 factors of 216 that add to 35? 27 and 8. Awesome. So here we have m plus 27 and m plus 8. And then when we multiply the first times last, what do we have to remember to do? Divide by the first. So we're going to divide by 3. So we have m plus 27 divided by 3 would be 9. If we can't divide it, what do we do with the denominator? Put it in front of the m, so 3m plus 8. So looking at our answer choices, that would be C. This one's a little bit tricky because it has big numbers. If you're looking at it and you're like, I have no idea how to factor this, look at your answer choices. Looking at the question, we have 3m to the 4th power plus 35m to the 3rd power plus 72. So because it has 2 plus signs, I'd probably start with the answer choice that has both plus signs, and I'd FOIL it out to see if that makes sense. So if you have no idea how to factor, remember you could always take your answer choices and FOIL them out. So because our question had 2 plus signs, our answer will probably both have plus signs. So take your answer choice with 2 plus signs and FOIL it. Any questions here? We did 3 last week. When we have perfect cubes, you're going to use your SOAP method to tell you what the signs are going to be. So remember, SOAP stands for same, opposite, always positive. So that'll tell you what the signs do, and then you can just pick the answer choice that matches the signs. Let's take a look at number 5. When we have 4 terms, how would we factor? Grouping. We group the first 2, group the second 2. What's the GCF from the first group? 25m squared. What are we left with when we divide both of these by 25m squared? So 25 divided by 25 would just be 1. And m to the 3rd power divided by m to the 2nd power would just be m. And what's 125 divided by 25? 5. And m to the 2nd power divided by m to the 2nd power cancels. Let's do the same thing with the second group. What's our GCF in the second group? -4. When we take out a -4, we're left with m plus 5. Remember, in order to group, we need our parentheses to be exactly the same because those are going to group together in one parentheses. My first parentheses is going to be m plus 5. And then the 2 outsides are going to go together for my second parentheses. So that would be 25m to the 2nd power minus 4. Looking at our answer choices, that does match one of them, but could we factor this anymore? What's special about 25m to the 2nd power minus 4? Perfect squares. So what would 25m to the second power minus 4 factor into?
5m minus 2 and 5m plus 2.
Awesome. 5m minus 2 and 5m plus 2. So this was the difference of squares. So our factors would be plus 5 times 5m minus 2 times 5m plus 2. Awesome. A. All right, let's take a look at number 6. I'm going to rewrite it on the side over here so we have more room. 36r to the 4th power minus 49. What's special about this? Difference of squares. What times what gives us 36r to the 4th power? 6r squared and 6r squared. And what times what gives us 49? 7 and 7. So this would be 6r squared plus 7 and 6r squared minus 7. Could we factor either one of these anymore? Nope. They're not the difference of squares because 6 and 7 aren't perfect squares. So looking at our answer choices, we have 6r squared plus 7 and 6r squared minus 7. That would be C. All right, looking at number 7. We have h to the 4th power plus 5h squared minus 14. Do we have a GCF that we can take out here? No, we don't. The 14 doesn't have any h's, so we can't take out a GCF. So we want to just factor this normally. But the only difference is instead of it being h to the 2nd power, it's h to the 4th. So when we split it up into the factors, it's going to be h squared and h squared. What are two factors of negative 14 that add to 5? 2 and 7. Negative 2 and positive 7. So h squared minus 2 and h squared plus 7. Can we factor either one of these anymore? No. That would be answer choice B. All right, next, let's take a look at 13. So we talked about this a little bit before where it says solve. You could always plug your answer choices back in to see if it works, or you can just factor this to solve. So when we factor it, do we have a GCF? Yeah. Each term has a y, so we could take out a y. We're left with y squared plus 8y plus 16 equals 0. Now, what are two factors of 16 that add to 8? 4 and 4. So we have y plus 4 and y plus 4 and the y on the outside. Now, what would we do to solve? We set everything equal to 0. So each of our factors gets set equal to 0. So y equals 0, y plus 4 equals 0, y plus 4 equals 0. So y equals 0 is one of our answers. Y equals negative 4 and y equals negative 4. So y equals negative 4 would be our other one. So negative 4 and 0. That would be A. For 14, we're going to do the same thing. Before a factor, what does it have to be equal to? It has to be equal to 0. So we need to subtract 40 to move it to the other side. So we have v to the 3rd power plus 10v squared minus 4v minus 40. When we have 4 terms, how do we factor? Grouping. Group the first two, group the second two. Take the GCF out of each group. So the first group, the GCF is v squared. We're left with v plus 10. Second group, our GCF is negative 4. So we take out the negative 4, and we're left with v plus 10. Put the two outsides together. So v squared minus 4. And the two insides go together. So v plus 10 equals 0. Can we factor this anymore? Which part? V squared minus 4. What's special about v squared minus 4? It's the difference of squares, so it factors into v plus 2 and v minus 2 times v plus 10 equals 0. Now, how would we solve from here? Set each piece equal to 0. So v equals negative 2, v equals positive 2, and v equals negative 10. So that would be answer choice B. All right, 15. Again, when we're solving, and we're going to solve by factoring, what does it have to be equal to? Has to be equal to 0. So let's subtract 20v to the third power to the other side. So 5v to the fifth power minus 20v to the third power is equal to 0. Now, how would we factor this? How? How would we factor? Take out the GCF. Our GCF would be 5v to the third power. We're going to divide them both by 5v to the third power. We are left with v squared minus 4. Can we factor any more? Yeah. V squared minus 4 is the difference of squares, so it factors into v plus 2 and v minus 2. What would we do next to solve? Set each piece equal to 0. Don't forget about the 5v to the third power. So 5v to the third power equals 0, v plus 2 equals 0, and v minus 2 equals 0. So we have v equals 0, v equals negative 2, and v equals 2. So that would be answer choice C. Any questions there? Right, next one we're going to do is number 20. So for 20, we want to find all the real solutions. So these are one of the questions where we can't factor it. You could try factoring by grouping because we have 4 terms, but it's not going to work. So we have to use synthetic division. We do the last over first to find which are possible options, but we could just use our answer choices to find possible options. So I'm going to start by putting my coefficients in the box. So I have 1, 12, 29, and 18. Looking at my answer choices, let's start small. Do you want to do 1 or negative 1? Let's do negative 1. And the reason why I picked 1 and negative 1, just because these two answer choices have positive 1, these two have negative 1. So if I try negative 1 first, if it works, it'll eliminate 2 of the answer choices. If it doesn't work, it'll eliminate 2. So it's a good one to start with. So let's try negative 1. We're going to drop down the 1, multiply, we get negative 1, add 11, multiply, negative 11, add, we get 18, multiply, negative 18, add, we get 0. Does it work? Yes. So negative 1 is an answer choice. So we can cross off C and D because those don't have negative 1 as an answer. From here, we could just factor it. We'd say 1x squared plus 11x plus 18. What are 2 factors of 18 that add to 11? 9 and 2. So this would factor into x plus 9 and x plus 2 equals 0. So what would x equal? When we set them equal to 0, what would x equal? Negative 9 and negative 2. So that would be answer choice A. Your other option would be do synthetic division again. You can do it with these numbers if you wanted to, 1, 11, and 18, or you could do it with the original numbers. And you could do the same thing that you did in the first step, but pick -2 or +2, and that'll eliminate your other two answer choices. So use your answer choices to help you. Or you could just factor after you do the first step. Any questions here?
Are you gonna post?
And I'll post the answers, like worked out. Let's do 23 next. So 23 is the same thing. We can't factor it, so we have to use synthetic division. Inside the box, we're going to put 1, -6, -1, 54, and -72. Looking at our answer choices, every single answer choice has -3 in it, so that wouldn't be a good one to pick. We could do 2 or -2, see if that works, because that would eliminate some of our answers. So we'll try +2. So we're going to drop down the 1, multiply, we get 2, add, -4, multiply, -8, -9, this would be -18, 54 minus 18, 36. And then 2 times 36 would be 72. Does it work? Yeah, so 2 works. So we could eliminate answer choice C and D because those don't have +2 in it. So we're left with A or B. The only difference in our answer choices between A and B is 3 and -3. So let's try +3 and see if it works. So we're going to do the same thing. You could either do it with the original question or do it with your new coefficients. So in the box, I'm going to put 1, -4, -9, and 36. So let's try +3. Drop down the 1, multiply, add, multiply, we get -3. This would be -12, and 3 times -12 is -36. We get 0. Does it work? Yep. So +3 works. +3 has to be an answer choice, so that would be answer choice B. A doesn't have +3 as an answer choice, so it's not that one. So for these types of questions, use your process of elimination. Any questions here? All right, last one we're going to do today is 25. So here we're going to take our factors. It's always x minus the number, so we always change the sign. So this would be x plus 5, x plus 4, and x minus 3. We're going to take the first two, FOIL them together. So first would be x squared, the outsides would be plus 4x, the insides plus 5x, and the last is plus 20. So combine our like terms, this would be x squared plus 9x plus 20. Then we still have to multiply the third one to it, so x minus 3. So same thing, we're foiling here. It's just an extra step, so make sure everything in the first parentheses gets multiplied to everything in the second. So x squared times x would be x to the third power. X squared times -3 would be -3x squared. Then we have 9x times x would be plus 9x squared. 9x times -3 would be -27x. And then 20 times x would be 20x. And 20 times -3 would be -60. Combine your like terms, x to the third power. Then when we add the x squareds together, this would be plus 6x squared. Add the x's together, minus 7x minus 60. So that would match answer choice C. Any questions here? All right, we're going to stop here for today. I'll tell you which are the other questions we're going to do, so you guys can make sure you do those. We'll go over it in class tomorrow. So for 27, we already have a common denominator, so we can just subtract the numerators. So 18 minus 24 would be negative 6. So negative 6 over 11, x squared minus 6. So that would be C. We did 28 together. Let's look at 31. So 31, we need a common denominator. So we can just multiply our two denominators together because there's no like terms in there. So in order to add them, we have to multiply by what's missing. So x is going to get multiplied by 9, and 5 is going to get multiplied by 4x plus 11. So on top, we have 9x. The negative 5 gets distributed to both things on the inside. So that's probably one of the most common mistakes that people will make here, and I bet it's even an answer choice, is that people just distribute positive 5, but they forget to distribute the negative to the 11 also. So this would be negative 20x minus 11. So 9x minus 20x would be negative 11x minus 11 over 9 times 4x plus 11. So that would be neither answer choice. What did we do wrong? Oh, I forgot to multiply the 5 to 11. Yes. I was too worried about the negative. So that would be negative 55. So that would be answer choice A. We talked about 32. When you have a fraction equals a fraction, you just cross multiply. So this would be 4 times 2x plus 3 is equal to 6 times x plus 5. We distribute. So this would be 8x plus 12 is equal to 6x plus 30. And then subtract to combine like terms. So 2x is equal to 18 and divide by 2. You guys can use your calculators for the test. So that would be A. A lot of these questions, when we took the test and quiz on them, you didn't have calculators. So a lot of them can be done without calculator, but just for like the little math things, you may want to use your calculator. All right, let's do 35. So here we want to factor our denominator to find our least common denominator. So x squared minus 4 factors into x plus 2 and x minus 2. So for our least common denominator, it would be x plus 2 times x minus 2. So we multiply by what's missing, or you could multiply it by your least common denominator, but what's already in the denominator is going to cancel. So everything's going to get multiplied by x plus 2, x minus 2, x plus 2, x minus 2, and x plus 2 and x minus 2. So if it's already in the denominator, it cancels out. We don't multiply that. So here we just have 4 times x plus 2. Minus, the next one we don't have anything to cancel, so we have to multiply negative 5 times x plus 2 times x minus 2, or negative 5 times x squared minus 4, because that's the same as x plus 2 times x minus 2. And then that would be equal to the last one, x plus 2 and x minus 2 cancels. So here it's just equal to 16. Let's distribute, and we'll multiply this all out. We get 4x plus 8 minus 5x squared plus 20 is equal to 16. We have an x squared and an x, so what does it have to be equal to? What do we have to do to solve? If we have an x squared and an x, it's got to be equal to 0 because we have to factor. So let's combine our like terms and move everything to one side. So we have negative 5x squared plus 4x, and then 8 plus 20 would be 28, minus 16 would be 12. We don't like it when our leading coefficient's negative, so what would we do to change that?
Multiply all of them by negative.
Awesome. We can multiply everything by -1 or divide everything by -1 or just change the signs. So it all means the same thing. We're going to change the signs of everything. So it's positive 5x squared minus 4x minus 12 is equal to 0. Now, how do we factor when we start with a number that's not 1?
Multiply it to the last number.
Multiply the first times the last. So 5 times -12 would be -60. What are two factors of -60 that add to -4?
-10 and +6.
Awesome. -10 and +6. So we have x minus 10 and x plus 6. What do we have to remember to do next?
Divide by 5.
Awesome. Don't forget, if you start by multiplying, you have to remember to divide. If you can't divide it, move it in front of the x. So here we have x minus 2 and 5x plus 6. So x is equal to 2 and x is equal to -6/5. Just real quick, we have to check for extraneous solutions. What can we not have in the denominator of a fraction? Can't have a negative. Can't have a negative in the denominator. So if I plugged in 2, what's 2 minus... Oh, just kidding. We can have negative. I was thinking of square root. What can we not have in the denominator?
Square root.
What can we not have in the denominator? 0. Can't have 0 in the denominator. So here we have 2 minus 2. What's that? 0. So does 2 an answer? Nope. Doesn't work. So our only answer would be -6/5, which would be answer choice A.
Wait, why can't 2 be the answer?
Can't have 0 in the denominator. So when we plugged 2 in, here we had 2 minus 2, which is 0. So 2 does not work as an answer choice. Or even when you plugged it into the next one, 2 squared is 4. 4 minus 4 is 0. Doesn't work in that one either.
Could you explain 34?
Yes. So 34 is kind of the same. We want to find our least common denominator. So let's factor our denominators. We have x times x plus 5, then x in the other one, and then x plus 5. So our least common denominator would be x times x plus 5. So we're multiplying everything times x and x plus 5, but if it's already in the denominator, we can cancel it out. So x and x minus 5, or x plus 5 cancels out in the first one, so we're just left with x squared. Second one, x cancels out with x, so this would be -9 times x plus 5. And then in the third one, x plus 5 cancels, so it's equal to x times x, which would be x squared. So let's combine our like terms. I'm going to distribute the -9 and subtract the x squared. Kind of do 2 steps in one. So you have -9x minus 45 is equal to the x squareds cancel. I can add 45 to move it to the other side. So -9x is equal to 45. Divide by -9, and x is equal to -5. Let's plug in -5 and see if it works as a solution. We have -5 squared, which would be 25. And then 5 times -5 would be minus 25. What's 25 minus 25? 0. Can we have 0 in the denominator? No, so it doesn't work. So what would our answer be here?
No solution.
No solution. The one answer that we found as a possible solution doesn't work, so there is no solution. Next, we have our sequences in series. So 41, it has an exponent, so we're going to use the formula that has the exponent, the n and the exponent. So that is a sub 1 times 1 minus r to the power of n over 1 minus r. So a sub 1 is our first term. We take 1 and we plug it in and see what we get. So this would be 6 times negative 5 to the power of 0. What's negative 5 to the power of 0? 1. So 6 times 1 would just be 6. So a sub 1 is 6. So we're going to plug that in. We have 1 minus r is our ratio. So that's the number that has the exponent. So that would be negative 5. To the power of n is our number on top. So that would be 4 over 1 minus negative 5. So we have to do the exponent first. Negative 5 to the 4th power would be what?
125.
That would be the 3rd power. I think it should be 625, yeah. So positive 625. And 1 minus 625. 1 minus 625? Negative 624. Over 1 minus negative 5. This turns into a plus, so 1 plus 5 is 6. And then we have 6 times negative 624 over 6, which would be negative 624. So it would be A. So you're putting this in the calculator. Don't forget about PEMDAS. Got to do the parentheses. So we start with what's inside the parentheses, but more specifically inside the parentheses, we have to do the exponent first. A lot of people always want to subtract first, that 1 minus negative 5 on top, and then do the exponent. You cannot do that. You'll get the wrong answer. So you have to do the exponent first. For 42, this is an arithmetic sequence, so we have to use our formula that is n over 2 times a sub 1 plus a sub n. So n is our number on top, so that's 11 over 2. A sub 1, we take the number on the bottom and plug it in. So negative 2 minus 8 would be negative 10. Plus a sub n, we take the number on top and plug it in. So this would be negative 22 minus 8, which would be negative 30. Yeah. So 11 over 2 times negative 40, because we have to do the parentheses first. And then we can multiply it. Just put it in your calculator. 11 over 2 times negative 40. This should be negative 220, which would be D. All right, 45. We want to write a rule for the nth term of the sequence. Just looking at our answer choices, we see that it's going to be an arithmetic sequence. So for our arithmetic formula, we use a sub n is equal to a sub 1 plus n minus 1 times d. So our first term would be negative 10. So just looking at the answer choices, right? Here, we have no exponents. It's just negative 7n minus 3. Look at all of the answer choices for this one. There are no exponents, so we're using the equation that does not have exponents. So that's how we know it's arithmetic. But we also know that it's arithmetic because we are adding to get from one number to the next. So arithmetic is adding.
And for the ones on top of it, like 42, 43.
Same thing. If it has an exponent, it's going to be the one with an exponent, which is geometric. So our first term is negative 10 plus n minus 1 times d, which is our common difference. What are we adding or subtracting to get from one number to the next? Adding or subtracting? Subtracting 3. So d would be negative 3. None of our equations are written like this, so we have to simplify it. So I'm going to distribute the negative 3. So negative 10 minus 3n plus 3. Negative 3n minus 7. So negative 3n minus 7, we can eliminate answer choice A and C. So when we distribute the negative 3, then when we combine like terms, negative 10 plus 3 gives us negative 7. I just kind of switched the order. And then it asks us for the 12th term, so we could just plug 12 into n. So negative 3 times 12 minus 7. Negative 3 times 12 would be negative 36. Minus 7 would be negative 43. So that would be answer choice D. Any questions here? 46 is the same, but here, looking at our answer choices, they all have exponents. So we're going to use the formula that has the exponents. So that is our geometric one. So a sub 1 times r to the power of n minus 1. So our first term is 6. Our common ratio is what we're multiplying to get from one number to the next. So here we're multiplying by negative 2 to the power of n minus 1. So 6 and negative 2 is on the inside. So we can cancel out c and b. Now it asks us for the 9th term here, so we're going to plug in 9. So we have 6 times negative 2 to the power of 9 minus 1, which would be to the power of 8. Negative 2 to the power of 8. I can't do this in my head. Anybody have a calculator? It should be positive something. 15. 36, you said?
Yeah.
And then times 6.
That is,
Oh, that's times 6. Oh, you already multiplied it. Perfect. So that would be answer choice A. Awesome. All right, 50, we're just drawing the angle in standard position. So if it's positive, remember you go up from 0. So positive 25 degrees would be C. If it's negative, so positive goes up, and then negative goes down. (51) says which angle is coterminal with negative 229. Coterminal, you add or subtract 360 degrees as many times until you find one of your angles. So here if we add 360, I think we should get 41. If we add 360, we don't quite get 41. You just put it in your calculator. But I think if we subtract 360, we end up with 589, negative 589, which would be answer choice B. So you may have to either add or subtract, just see which answer choice you get. Any questions here?
So how is that gonna, like, it has to be higher?
It has to be one of the answer choices, exactly. So it has to fall on one of the answer choices exactly. So you can either add or subtract. If we added 360 to negative 229, it would be 131, I think. So it's not any of the answer choices. So then let's subtract and try. So when we subtracted, we got exactly negative 589. 56, we're converting to radians. So 265 times pi over 180. Use your calculator to simplify, but 5 goes into both of these. 5 goes into 180 36 times. And then 5 goes into 265. I'm going to guess and say 53. So 53 pi over 36. Perfect. For 58, it says use the unit circle to evaluate the 6 trig functions of negative 720. So I'm going to put the unit circle on here. You guys will get the unit circle on the final. this is going to be the formula sheet that you guys get for the final. So it'll give you your trig ratios. So it'll tell you sine is y over r. If you're using the unit circle, remember we don't use r, or r is just 1 on the unit circle. It's going to give you the special right triangles, so you just have to know what to do with them. And then it'll give you the arithmetic and geometric formulas, and it even labels them for you, and the unit circle.
Can I see if this is easy?
So let's look at 58. It gives us negative 720, which is not on the unit circle. So let's add 360 until we find something that is on the unit circle. When we add 360, we get negative 360. We have to add 360 again, and we get 0. 0 is on the unit circle. So we're looking at the point 1, 0. So when we evaluate our 6 trig functions, sine is the y. So sine would be 0. Cosine is the x, which would be 1. So we can eliminate answer choice C. Tangent is y over x, so 0 over 1. What does 0 over 1 simplify to? 0. 0's on top, it would be 0, so we can eliminate answer choice D. And then when we find the reciprocal ones, cosecant, I ran out of space here, let's write it. So cosecant would be 1 over 0 when we flip it. What's 1 over 0? Undefined. It's undefined. So which answer would that be? B. Awesome. We don't even need to find the other ones because we already know. So I think with 40 questions, you guys should have plenty of time on the final. Don't rush it, but also you don't have to work out every single question 100% when you have answers like these. Use process of elimination. Use your answer choices to help you. So next, let's do 60. It gives us cotangent is 2 over 5, and we have to find the other 5 trig functions. So we want to use SOHCAHTOA here. Cotangent goes with tangent. So if tangent's opposite over adjacent, that means that cotangent is going to be adjacent over opposite. So 2 would be our adjacent, and 5 is our opposite. How do we find the hypotenuse? Awesome. A squared plus B squared equals C squared, where C is always the hypotenuse. So 2 squared plus 5 squared is equal to, we'll call it C squared, or you could call it H squared if you wanted. So 4 plus 25 is equal to C squared. So C would be square root 29. So square root 29 is our hypotenuse. So let's find our trig function. Sine is opposite over hypotenuse. So 5 over square root 29. All of our answer choices are rationalized, so we'd have to rationalize. Multiply the top and the bottom by square root 29. So we get 5 square root 29 over 29.
So it's either C or A.
Perfect. So we can cancel out D and B. Let's find cosine next. So cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse. So adjacent is 2 over square root 29. When we rationalize, we get 2 square root 29 over 29. So which answer choice would that be?
A.
That would be answer choice A. All right, 62. 62 is the same thing. It gives us a point, and we have to find the other trig functions. So our point is x and y. We have to find the r. So we just use Pythagorean theorem. So we have negative 48 squared plus 20 squared is equal to r squared. Just plug it in your calculator. R is 52?
Yeah.
Perfect. So let's find our trig function. Sine is y over r, so 20 over 52. We can simplify that. Divide them both by 4. We get 5 over 13. Positive 5 over 13. So that would be
A or C, or B or C. Sorry.
B or C, so we can cancel out D and A. Next, let's find cosine. Cosine is x over r, so that would be negative 48 over 52, which simplifies to negative 12 over 13, which is answer choice B. Let's look at 65. It says identify the amplitude and then graph the function. What would our amplitude be here?
5.
5. It's the number that we multiply out front. So which answer choice has the amplitude of 5? C. So you don't even have to graph it. 66. It says identify the amplitude and then graph. What's our amplitude here?
3.
3, which would be answer choice A. We did 67 together. Let's do 69. So for 69, it says graph one period and describe the graph as the transformation. So here we set 1/2 x equal to what? Then we solve for x. We can multiply 2 on both sides. So x is equal to, thank you, pi. So our amplitudes would go through, or our asymptotes, sorry. Our asymptotes would go through pi. So that would be all of them, actually. It's positive, so we know that our graph is going to be increasing. So we can eliminate B and C. Now let's see what the difference is between A and D. It says the graph of G is a horizontal shrink by a factor of 1/2 and a vertical shrink by a factor of 5. The next one says the graph is a horizontal stretch by a factor of 2 and a vertical stretch by a factor of 5. Well, 5 is bigger than 1, so is 5 going to make it a shrink or a stretch? 5 would make it a stretch, so that would be answer choice D. So just look at the number out front. The number inside, so after the tangent, is the opposite of what you think. So that's why it says that it's a horizontal stretch by 2. But just look at the number out front, and that'll give you your answer. So here it says that a vertical shrink by a factor of 5. We know that 5 is greater than 1, so it should be a vertical stretch. So we want to find the value of x for the right triangle. So we are giving you the proportions for a 45-90 and a 30-60-90. So you really just have to know what to do with them. Here, the legs are going to be your a, and the hypotenuse is a square root 2. So when we solve for a, we divide by square root 2. So a is equal to 19 over square root 2. The answer will probably be rationalized on the test, so we have to multiply the top and the bottom by square root 2. So we get 19 square root 2 over 2. So that would be our a, which we just plug in, which is x is equal to 19 square root 2 over 2. And then first, it'll leave it like that. I don't think it'll give you the decimal.
No, it did.
Oh, for the answer, yeah. But I think on multiple choice, it might just leave it like this.
Okay.
So 71, Doing the same thing, 60's up top, which means 30's down below. So opposite of the 30 is your a, opposite of the 60 is a square root 3, and your hypotenuse is 2a. So use the equation that has some information that's given. So 15 is equal to 2a. Divide both sides by 2. So you can say it's 15 over 2. I think this was the same question that was on the test. A lot of people put 7.5, which is fine also. When we plug in a into the equation with x, we get x is equal to 7.5 square root 3. Or you could say 15 square root 3 over 2. Either way would work.